Welcome back. So I'm just going to summarize the conversation and then we're going to move into the continuums. There are 4 continuums that we need to be talking about, but first of all, whenever we meet our clients or engage, we always check in, contract to create the container. Find out what the client's agenda is, ask questions, listen to the client's needs, values and purpose. And the reason that we do that is we believe that people that live a life of meaning and purpose don't need to live in a culture of addiction. So here are the continuums. The first continuum is the one that goes use, misuse, abuse and dependence. The client uses and they're having great fun, and then it starts to misuse, and then they start to feel the consequences, and then they continuously abuse that behavior, and then they become dependent and they can't live without it. So even though they know it's going to end in trouble, they cannot stop that behavior. In 12-step stuff, they call that powerlessness, and that the client's life becomes unmanageable, which I'm sure you're aware of, and you most probably have your own lived experience, which you might want to share with your client if it is beneficial to the relationship. You also need to know when to hold it back and allow the client to work it out for themselves. Okay. The next continuum that we have is the continuum of wellness. On the one end, we have premature death, and on the other end, we have high well-being. Now, our clients, can they be using a substance and be moving towards high well-being? Some people say, no, you can't. You need to be completely abstinent. In our philosophy, we don't agree with that. You can have somebody that's got a terminal illness like cancer, and their attitude can take them to premature death, or their attitude can move them towards high well-being. If somebody's got diabetes, their attitude and behavior can take them towards premature death, or their attitude and behavior can take them to high well-being. And we have the same approach with substance use disorder. Somebody that's a heroin addict, for example, if they move on to a methadone maintenance program or Suboxone or something like that, and they start to maintain and start to rebuild their life, is that recovery? How do we know that? We ask the client. Remember, in recovery coaching, the agenda comes from the client. So we ask the client if that's working for them. And as they progress, like we spoke about with the gambler, maybe after a while they decide to then get off of that. Yes, or somebody might be on a methadone program and then use that to top up and still use street drugs and still get involved in the culture of addiction even more. That was my own personal experience. However, what we're doing here is we're trying to engage with our client and start to build rapport with them, so we work with them towards high well-being. Now, the third continuum that we're talking about is one of addiction, harm reduction, abstinence. And if we're not building rapport with our client, how can we work with them to start to move them from a culture of addiction, the chaos and crisis of addiction, to harm reduction, to abstinence? And who suffers when the client is in a culture of chronic addiction? The client suffers, but also the family members and society. So a client will be using here in chronic addiction, and the family is being affected here. And if that person moves on to a methadone program or something, life might be easier for the family. So we need to start thinking systemically as well. The fourth continuum that we're talking about is one of codependency and independency, and we're looking to get to a place of interdependency. So the client will be using, and often the family members or society is very caught up in the chaos, and they base their feelings and emotions on the other person's behavior. What we're looking to do is to move the family members or whoever it is to a place of independence, so they are not impacted by the client's behavior. And notice I'm using the word client, and I'm moving away from the stigmatizing of the word addict. Yeah, it's still a systemic, stigmatized illness or condition. So this continuum is independence to codependence. And what we're looking for over time is that the people come together and learn to have an interdependent relationship, one that moves from a culture of addiction towards a culture of recovery, where everyone in the system starts to move towards the solution. So this is what we're talking about here, and we'll go deeper into the continuums later. Thanks for watching.